Today, in the sun and silence, I listened to a mountain. In a strong, confident, unmovable way, I heard, "It's going to be okay." Today, I felt a glimpse of something I haven't in a while. Connection, wonder, bliss, excitement. The other side of the hard times, hard decisions, stressed energy. The other side of scary leaps and risks. Today, Ian and I went up the road with the camera. Abraham and I am now posting from my new living room in Colorado on what seems like the other side of a very, very difficult year. I know we've all had them, and it seems many around me are experiencing this intensity with me. A shift, a transition, a leap, a new beginning. And just maybe it does seem like it is turning out for the better. For starters, the view. One post won't do, but we can start here and begin to fill in the gaps. Part of me is sorry and really felt like I left some people hanging. However, a larger, wiser part of me knew I needed to step away from everything for myself. I am glad I listened to the larger one for once. Healing is the loudest word I hear. Identity, confusion, challenge, growth, and evolution also resonate. Burnt out is one word. Perspective and priority change I could use too. Feeling humbled and like I am starting over is also a theme. Here I am to tell you what I figured out feels best. Own it. Own your shift and don't resist it. I've learned it's okay to be confused and spiraling, because out of confusion comes clarity. We just have to believe this too shall pass, and it will. The more I follow a good feeling and let go of what doesn't serve me, the less I fear about what's to come. So here I am, working with my amazing sister and her boyfriend, with my awesome husband and dogs in a state so beautiful you could cry. Still figuring it out each day, but I'm just going to keep following the good feeling. By the way, I missed you all. Another part of my good feeling added back. Peace and love. And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit Podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro women's physique competitor, personal trainer, entrepreneur, and beacon of good vibes. Today's guest is Dani Schofield. Dani, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit Podcast.
Hey, Quentin and everybody. Thanks so much for having me and for listening. I'm super excited to be here with you all today.
Cool. So, Dani, we're going to jump into a little bit of a warm-up to kind of get things kick-started. So the first question that I have for you today is, how do you start your day, and do you have kind of a specific morning routine that you like to stick to on most days? So my schedule kind of changes every day. It's 3 or 4 times of the week. I'm up at like 3:30 to get ready for coaching at 5:30. The days that I actually get up earliest, I find that I have the best morning routine because I'm kind of alone. Nobody's up yet. I don't need to take care of anybody but myself. So first what I do, I actually wash my face and then I sit down to meditate for a couple minutes, usually about 10 to 15 minutes. And then kind of after that, it's time to like get my day started and start getting ready. But a morning routine is something that I really have been wanting to cultivate a better, almost like set routine for, and like meditate every day instead of just the days that I'm up early. So I have some things that I'd like to do better and some things that I do sometimes, but right. I don't have anything that's like super set in stone all the time. Okay. Now, in regards to the meditation, because that's something that comes up with nearly all of my podcast guests, Is that just something you kind of do on your own, or is it kind of like a guided meditation with an app?
I used to do more guided meditations, but I was actually talking to one of my friends who did a couple of Vipassana meditations where he would go for 10 days in silence.
Okay.
And he was explaining to me that there's something to be said about the silence and being kind of with yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I've been really practicing that and cultivating just really breathing and almost just focusing on like in and out, just breaths, almost like counting to 100 really slow, or saying here and now as I'm breathing in and out. And really just trying to be with myself in the silence versus having an outside influence. And so that's actually something that I've been doing more so these days is more the silence. And something that I try to focus on that I think is really great is almost the not reactive type meditation. So if you have an itch or if your back hurts, really try to almost resist that and go more deeper in. And I find that practicing that in my meditation, the non-reactivity, makes me more non-reactive in my everyday life. Perfect. So I almost like train my brain to not... I don't know that I've really done that yet, but that's the idea that I'm trying to do. Yeah, because I think a non-reactive person in everyday life helps you handle situations better and it helps you be more peaceful.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm going for, is just I'd like it more peace.
Yeah, beautiful. That's good. All right, cool. So on the second question that I have for you, Dani, is do you have a favorite book or a book that you like to gift often?
I actually don't. I don't have a favorite book. Reading is something that I'm just now starting to do. Cool. So the online people that I'm working with, the online training business, they're kind of about reading and self-development, things like that. Yeah. It's really hard for me to sit down and read. I like to move, like we were talking about earlier, movement. Yeah. So I'm good at like audiobooks because I can be doing something else, and it almost helps me if I'm like doing dishes and listening, or like eating and listening. But I have a book right now, The Inner Tradition of Yoga, that I just started, but I'm starting that because of teacher training coming up soon. But I'm actually really excited to start reading because I know how good it is for our brains and our bodies and everything. So reading is something that I am like really, really trying to cultivate in my life. It's hard or if I sit down, I fall asleep. Like it's really hard for me.
I hear you on that.
Honestly, yesterday I sat down and tried to read on my yoga mat outside, and I was like, then again, face down in my book, sleeping in it.
Yeah,
so
no, that's cool. That's cool. I appreciate the honesty though. You know what I mean? Because most people in that situation probably like, oh, they probably pull something out, but that's good. It's good because that's the thing. Like we all have to realize like. None of us has it all figured out. None of us has it all together. Like we're all in different like seasons, different phases, different levels of life, and it's just beautiful. That's why like the world is so beautiful and all the spices of life, all the different people. It's so beautiful because we're all very different, but then again we're all very similar. And one of the greatest similarities that all human beings have is like we're all imperfect. You know what I mean? We're all a work in progress. So I appreciate the honesty and sharing that. So do you have a favorite, and if you have more than one, then go ahead and share, but is there like a favorite quote or mantra that has been very impactful in your life?
Okay, so most recently, peace has been my goal. So that word I really love, and I found a Sanskrit, like Indian mantra that has to do with peace, and it's the song is actually by Tina Turner. She sings a prayer, and it's really pretty. And I'm going to butcher it.
That's okay.
But it's like Sarvasham Svastir Bhavatu. And there's a couple lines in it, but the whole thing is, may there be happiness in all, may there be completeness in all, may there be peace in all. And it kind of goes over and over like that. And it's kind of, I like that mantra for myself, but also I like to send that out to everybody because I would love for everybody to be happy and peaceful and complete. And I just think that's my goal.
Cool.
Happiness, completeness, and really peacefulness.
Yeah.
And everything. And like in the food I eat and what I do and how I speak and how I be, how I am, I really, peace.
Yeah.
Peace. That's
good.
That's the shit right now.
We're gonna dig into that more.
Cool.
Because I mean, like, I think you're probably a pretty type A individual. I can just, like, the energy is already, pretty intense, and, like, that's how I am. And I know that's something, actually, you said you listened to Shannon's episode on the podcast, and I just interviewed her on Monday. And that's something I'm meeting with her this coming Friday. I'm going to put her through a workout, and in exchange, she's going to teach me some, like, down-regulating breathing techniques. Ooh. Because that's something she was like, kind of after we got off the podcast or the interview or whatever, turned off the mic, she was kind of like, challenging me and like dude, like you go. Like it's very healthy to have that peace and to have that down regulation. I know all that intellectually, but it's like for me, if I sit still for 5 minutes, like my brain never sits still. Like it's always going. But if I just like physically sit down, and if I'm not doing something, like I'm like, dude, like I'm being lazy right now. I'm being unproductive. Like I've got to, and it's like, no, dude, like it's okay just to chill and to have that peace and that calmness and that stillness. And it's very, very valuable. So so we're gonna get back to the peace thing because I need more peace in my life too. And I think there's probably a lot of people just in our fast-paced culture in America that need more peace.
Yeah, they like skip over it. It's like not sexy.
No, it's not.
They want to be like make money and do all this and make all this stuff
grind.
happen.
And, I'm up until 4 a.m. and I get up then at 6 and it's like, okay, well, that works for a little while, but then you're going to get burned out and it's not going to be good. So, all right. So, Dani, last question as a part of the warm-up. Do you have like a favorite podcast or most listened to podcast kind of in the playlist?
So I kind of pop around on YouTube a little bit.
Okay,
There's a bunch of different things I like to listen to and be influenced by a ton of different people. I really love listening to like Oprah, her Super Soul Sunday, and because it's kind of like that personal development. Like there's some stuff that she does with Eckhart Tolle and the New Earth. I like Wayne Dyer. I like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I like Sadhguru right now.
Okay, I've never heard of that one.
Sadhguru, he's like an Indian like mystic kind of guy, and he talks about peace, and he's just very yogic about what he does and how he says everything. So I really like him and the way he is, and he's all about just being joyful. Like we don't need anything to be joy and things like that. So things along that kind of that spectrum I like, but I like anything. Like I'll listen to stuff about, like Joe Rogan, like his deal, and then Oprah. Yeah. So like the whole thing I like.
That's quite the contrast.
Totally, yeah. But I love them equally.
Right. Now, in regards to Joe Rogan, because he's a name that comes up quite often with my guests on this podcast. Is there something that you specifically like about him, or is there like a specific guest that you've really found value in that he's had on his specific podcast?
I think it's like the wide range of things that he talks about. Yeah. I like that he talks about psychedelics, and that he has people on like Paul Stamets who talks about all the mushrooms and how they're going to save the planet. Like I'm way into that. And he's had a couple other people there who kind of like talk about DMT and ayahuasca. So actually, really, Joe Rogan, I like the psychedelic deal that he does. And I guess that's my main thing that I listen to him for, to be honest with you. Cool. And then Oprah's like the spiritual deal. Yeah. But yeah, so Joe Rogan's like that kind of controversy things that you don't really find everywhere. Yeah. Cool.
Good deal. Yeah, I know. What was it, a couple weeks ago when Denver passed the I don't know all the specifics. I just saw some stuff on the news that they passed the mushroom thing. I saw Joe Rogan say like, I love Denver. I'll be there like in October. He's got some show going on or something. So you never know. He probably buy he might already have a house out in Colorado. He probably does.
Oh my God, probably
move somewhere here closer to Denver so he can hang out with the peeps. But all right, very good. So we are going to kind of jump into your backstory, Dani. So if you don't mind just sharing kind of like where you grew up, kind of like what those younger years look like. Were you involved in extracurricular activities and sports? And we'll just kind of start there, kind of like, the elementary age, family dynamics, and then we'll just kind of move up into high school and then post-high school, and we'll just kind of keep moving forward to where we're at today.
Okay. So starting off when I was little, I grew up Cape Cod, Massachusetts, till probably like 2nd or 3rd grade. And then my mom moved to Tampa. My dad they've been divorced since I was like 2. Okay. So I've actually always like had the 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, which is kind of sweet. Yeah. So my dad stayed Cape Cod and my mom moved to Tampa. And then I would go to Cape Cod summers and Christmases, things like that. And that's kind of when I started to get into sports. And I tried out for cheerleading, didn't make it. And then I was going to play football. I was going to be quarterback. Sweet. Yeah, I was like really excited about it. And then we ended up moving to Tampa, so I didn't actually get to do the football thing. until I was in high school, did powder puff, was the quarterback yet again. We beat the sophomores, just saying.
There you go.
And so family dynamic. So yeah, they were divorced. My mom was actually an alcoholic for a lot of my childhood. And she was never a bad mom. Like we never went without. We always did our homework. But I really did grow up in a house that was, I had to be the parent. So I have a younger sister.
Okay.
And so I kind of had to grow up kind of quickly. But I don't really I don't like putting it in a bad light because it made me who I am.
Absolutely.
And my mom was always a great mom, and she's even, better. It made our connection so strong because it was me, my mom, and my sister for a lot of my life.
Yeah.
And so now that she's been sober for a while, we have this great connection, and I honestly wouldn't change it. Like, it was kind of hard as a kid, the court asked you like who you want to live with and that kind of shit. But I don't know, I kind of liked it. And then I liked going to my dad's on Cape Cod and having that dynamic there, and it was just really always fun. So then we went to Florida, and I guess like elementary, I kind of did like cheerleading. And then I got really into cheerleading in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So high school is when I tried out, made the team. That's when I started to get like really athletic. And I started to figure out my body and how to use it and how to tumble and how to lift.
Right.
And then I started doing weightlifting.
Okay.
So this is where the weights come into play. I was cheerleading. The coach at the school looked at me and he was like, hey, you're pretty jacked. Like, maybe you should come and try to do weightlifting. So I did really good right out of the gate, like broke records in all the weight classes just because as I got stronger and got heavier, through the years of high school, I kept lifting and kept doing better. And we did like bench and clean and jerk. And that was pretty much it. And so that's where I got competitive. And I did that simultaneously with cheerleading. So when I was in high school, my big things were competitive cheerleading, and then weightlifting. And I became really good at both of those. And then it was like the captain, record breaker, things like that. And I also did competitive cheerleading outside of high school. So by the time I graduated high school, I was on 3 different cheerleading teams, bodybuilding and doing weightlifting.
Wow.
And so that was like my foundation. And cheerleading was my love before bodybuilding and like the fitness NPC. So I wanted to go to school for cheerleading. That's why I tried out at UCF. Pretty much made the team, didn't get into the college.
Right.
My ACT scores weren't good enough, which was a blessing in disguise because after that I stopped cheerleading and went to compete in the NPC. But let me backtrack. So when I was in high school, my weightlifting coach put on a bodybuilding show for all of the athletes. And the first 2, I entered it all 4 years. First 2 years I did it, I got showmanship award because I put on a good routine. Even then, that was like my jam.
Yeah.
But I remember my freshman year, we had like a Gatorade chugging contest. I hung out with like the football players and stuff.
Yeah.
A Gatorade chugging contest like the night of the show. And now I think about that and I'm like, are you freaking out of your mind? So yeah, that was my first one. And then I got better and better. And then by the time I was a junior and senior, I won the overall for the bodybuilding. Cool. Figured it out.
Right.
No Gatorade.
Yeah.
And then I figured out cardio. I started to pack my meals very young. The rice cakes and peanut butter protein shake. I remember my first chocolate GNC protein shake. It was gross.
I bet it was nasty. I remember those some of the shakes I had back in the day is just nasty. Clumpy and chunky and only God knows what they put in them.
Yeah. No idea. Like,
definitely wasn't healthy. I know that.
But I was forming those habits, those bodybuilder habits.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd make like a turkey roll, like wrap thing. So then I competed, won that the last 2 years. And I remember being backstage and feeling that feeling of like, oh my God, am I going to win? And that competitive like thing. And it was really, that's when like that fire started to ignite for bodybuilding. And I didn't know about the NPC. Right. And I didn't know about that till I went to college and I started to work out at those gyms. And people were like, hey, you should compete. You have good genetics, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, all right. So then I tried figure. And I didn't do well at first. I actually got second out of the first one that I went to. I was 19, competed at Orlando Europa, pretty big show, just right into the. And I really was kind of chunky on stage. Like I thought protein bars were good. I thought peanut butter was good, so I would go like sneak a Reese's. And so I was just kind of learning and cultivating that. And now I look back at those pictures when I was 19 and like, I was like, who let me on stage? You guys were coaching me, come on. But it was such a good learning experience. So I started off, they awarded me first. And that I actually didn't get first. I messed up the judging. So we come around backstage. I thought I won. And it was just me and this other girl. They're like, actually, you got second. So you have to like go back on stage and like give her the trophy. So I was like, okay, cool. So that was my first experience bodybuilding ever at a show. And I don't know. I was able to come back from that. It didn't affect. It was like kind of heartbreaking on stage. So I didn't even come back for the open. I was competing in the figure open. So that was figure teen, got second, didn't even come back for the open. And that still resonates with me because I'm a very respectful person. Yeah. And had I known that the trajectory that my career would go with bodybuilding, I would have gone back and just taken the last place deal. Right. But I felt, I don't know. So I didn't go back. And that was my first one. So then after that, I got better. Then I got first. I was like, okay, figured it out. Then I kept getting better. Then I was like, okay, qualified for nationals. And it was a very quick climb like that for me. So it was like one show, learning lesson, do better the next time. Learning lesson, do better. Then I went to nationals for figure. And that was around the time that Physique started to come. Like the first national show they had was my first figure show.
Okay, so I just want to interject here because a lot of my listeners won't understand like the difference between like figure, physique, bodybuilding. So if you don't mind just kind of like explaining that just a little bit, because like I understand, but a lot of people that will be listening probably on my end won't. So just so they kind of understand, because like, you know, most people like bodybuilding, they just think like, you know, they don't know like really the different categories. So can you just kind of maybe break that down a little bit, Dani, please?
Yeah. So in terms of muscularity, I think that's the best way to kind of put it on a scale. So in terms of most muscularity, you're going to get women's bodybuilding. And that's kind of the women who are super big. Right. Kind of like the Iris Kyle, if you look, that was like Miss Olympia for a while. And then if you take it down a notch, you have women's physique, which is what I competed in and really, went really far in, was women's physique. Yeah. And so that's less muscular than women's bodybuilding, a little bit more feminine, a little more girly. And then right under that, you have figure. And that's in heels. That's what I started in because I didn't have physique yet. Right. So that's in heels. You're not so much posing like throwing up a front double bicep. You're more so showing off your physique and your figure. Right. But you're still muscular. You're still cut, but you're just not as cut and conditioned as the other categories. And then after figure comes bikini. And that's like the nice body contest. That's like the beach body, nice booty, nice back, nice abs, but it's not very cut and conditioned. It's not that at all. Right. So there's 4 categories. So it goes bikini, figure, women's physique, and then bodybuilding. Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Yes. I just want the guests not to be completely like whoa, what's she talking about? Yeah, totally. And thank you for that's good.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's cool.
And so I started in figure, and it just wasn't enough for me. Right. I was always the girl who was throwing up a front double bicep, and they're like, Dani, we don't do that. Right. Because I kind of had big arms. Like I feel like I'm like a German Shepherd. I had to grow into my arms a little bit. Yeah. So, and then when they brought in women's physique after that national show, I was like, this is where I remember my first front double bicep actually on stage, and it was so memorable for me. And so then I started that journey, and from 19 to 22, by the time I was 22, I had my pro card. So that's what I wanted. 22 nationals. Yes, very awesome and impactful. Right. I did my posing routine to Eminem. So another reason why I love women's physique is because of the routine. Some people get freaked out by it, but I'm like, no, that's where we get to show our personality. Right. And picking the song for me was always my favorite part because I am very affected by music. I'm not very musically talented, but a song will make me cry. It'll give me goosebumps. It'll pump me up, really, really affect me. So what I loved about women's physique is that I could choose my song and choose my vibe for the show. Right. And people always would say, oh, I love your posing. And I don't know that I was really ever the best poser, but I know they felt that shit. Right. Yeah. Because I did. My later years, I would almost be brought to tears on the Olympia stage because of my freaking song. Right. So 19, then 22 pro card. By the time I was 25, I was on the Olympia stage. Right. So a couple years later, Olympia stage, 25, 26, 27 was my last Olympia. And so it was a very quick, kind of climb for me, very intense. Right. And so that's where I ended up.
So you gave us a quick snapshot of things like the physique competing and all that type of stuff. So I want to take a step back. Yeah. So because becoming an IFBB pro, there's a lot that goes into that, and genetics is one of those things. You have to have some sort of genetic giftedness to become an IFBB pro. Now, things have kind of changed nowadays because like they're giving out a lot more pro cards. You've got the men's physique bikini, but I mean back in like the early 2000s and mid 2000s, like it was very difficult to get an IFBB pro card. But what I'm trying to say is genetics is very important in attaining that. And stepping on the Arnold stage and the Olympia stage, that's a whole nother ball game. But what I'm trying to get at is, as a female, and like having a coach come up to you and saying, hey, like you're pretty built or whatever, you should try lifting weights and stuff. Was there ever any type of negative impact that had on you, or was it because you were involved in like cheerleading and active and kind of like an athlete and all that type of stuff? Did it not really matter?
Negative impact as far as like
just
being
like
pushed.
your build, like I mean, because you're jacked for a girl, and especially like in high school when we're going all those different changes, and especially for younger girls. Like I'm a middle school, high school teacher, so I see all the different things. Like there's just a lot going on at that stage of the game. So was like your natural build, your natural physique being like probably more jacked than a lot of the dudes?
Yeah.
Was there any negativity that came your way, or not really?
Yeah, there's always going to be haters, kind of. Yeah. I was always kind of rewarded for my physique, which I don't know that that's always great.
Right. Being
15 and being judged on your appearance, I don't know if that's really like healthy. And very impressionable years is when I was competing and really had to be, this certain body fat, abs had to be out, or what, so then there's that battle, that internal battle that I think every girl kind of goes through.
Right.
But when you're always being judged on your physique and everyone always loves your muscles and they always love the way you look, I mean, I feel like there's kind of like a negative thing, because what if you're not so jacked? What if you don't? Yeah. So there's a whole thing that you have to learn about, like loving yourself and your body. That I probably realized like now, like later after I was finished competing. And so the negative I would get would be maybe like, using steroids and people kind of like digging at you that way.
Right.
But there were always so many more people that were like, oh my God, I love the way you look. Like, how do you get like that? And there was always, the good. There was always like one bad, but there was always like 10 good.
Right, okay.
And I'm really good at focusing on the good. And I used to have a mouth. Like, I would really mouth off at people, who would be negative. But now I learned to like not give that any energy. Like, they don't deserve any of my power.
Right.
Even like negative comments. Sometimes it's really, I have to like, I'll write a whole freaking thing and then delete it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, all right, I don't want to put that out there and give it energy, but like I really want this person to know like you're freaking wrong.
Right.
And so that was actually a struggle for me, was to just try to keep quiet. But then the more quiet I would be, my people would back me up.
Yep.
So then there would be 10 comments under that, giving it to that person. I'm like, man, you know what? I'm so glad I kept my mouth shut and didn't, So yeah, I think there's always negativity, and no matter what you do, even if you're the healthiest person, even now being vegan, there's negativity all over the place with that.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that I always carried myself in a way too that I think was kind of like confident and a little classier than most. So I didn't deal with a ton of negativity. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't really let it.
Right, yeah. No, that's cool. I just want to know, because like, again, going back to those younger years and having like a coach come up saying like, hey, you're jacked or whatever, you should start lifting weights, like, that can kind of go both ways. That can be super positive and it can build your confidence, or that at some point can do some damage. So that's why I was just kind of wondering, psychologically as a female, most females aren't walking around, in high school and their early, 20s and stuff, being called like jacked, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I was just kind of wondering and trying to dig a little bit deeper if there was anything like psychologically that you had to kind of deal with or overcome as a young lady, So
yeah, I always kind of liked it. Like when people are like, you look
cool.
jacked, they're like, Dani, you're like one of the only people I can be like, you look big today, and I'll be like, thanks.
Yeah, that's cool.
I kind of like that. I think internally, I think I am like a meathead. I think at heart, I do kind of like lifting and getting a pump and like that. I've been away from that for a little while, almost like a year and a half now.
Yeah.
But now when I go in the gym with my friends and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this is, I forget.
Yeah.
This is nice. Like I'll get a pump, and so that's kind of cool.
No, it's beautiful.
But I think it did build my confidence.
Okay, cool.
Too, definitely. But there was also a learning where I had to learn that I'm not only my body.
Right.
I'm also a brain. Like I do have a master's, so I always wanted to be educated and well spoken, and also then I cultivated a spiritual side of the muscles.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be more than muscles. Is something that I always kind of like kept like in the forefront of my mind is more than muscles, because early on I was like in high school my nickname was Muscles or Hulk or something like that.
Right.
And I think my email in high school was even Dani has muscles.
That's funny.
And so it was really, I'm really glad that I tried to cultivate something that was a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, so those early competitive years in regards to like physique competition and stuff, was how did you learn? I mean, I know there was like the kind of the coach that was teaching you, but that sounds like more like weightlifting stuff. Was there like one individual that's very influential in regards to helping you like get on stage or giving you some tips? Because I mean, for myself personally, like I had a great mentor, but a lot of the stuff that I learned was like through muscle and fitness and muscular development and things like that.
Yeah.
So kind of how did that unfold for you? Was there kind of a mentor or somebody that was kind of at least giving you a little bit of advice for the early years in competing?
Yeah. And it's funny because my mentors kind of changed as my career changed. So first to start off with my weightlifting coach.
Okay.
And he actually later came to my one of my bodybuilding shows in Tampa. He showed up, and it was really cool to see me probably like 6 years later. He started that off when I was 15.
Right.
And he, Coach Cass, if he ever listens to this, he started that. So he was kind of my mentor and almost like that dad figure that was in my weightlifting life. And then after that, I got a couple coaches who guided me, taught me about protein and nutrition and posing, and then it grew and grew. But then I also, when I started, I was really into Kai Green. When I would say, I think I was 19 or 20, doing figure still. Yeah. I didn't even know what thoughts became things were, but I was super drawn to it, and I understood like what that meant about thinking and dreaming and putting all of your energy towards one thing. And for me, it was really easy to say, okay, I want to win this show, I want to be Miss Olympia. Right. So every action that I do is going to be towards that. And I would go over like my posing routine, and back then I didn't even know that I was visualizing. I was just rehearsing my routine in my head, and I could see what I wanted to look like. And then after I figured out Kai Green, he started to almost put what I was doing to practice, and I could see his thought process and see him on stage and see almost that spiritual connection that he had between his body and his mind. And I felt that so deeply. And then when I started to pose, and he almost was like that person for me that had me feel bodybuilding. Right. I felt it versus just did it. And I think that's what I attribute a lot of my success to the feeling that bodybuilding gave me. Not just the carbs, the fat, the protein, but the spiritual movements of it, and then the posing. But then my later years, when I started to become better at bodybuilding and really climb and do well, my coaches, Nikki and AJ, they really knew how to just get in my head, and they felt the way I did about body. They knew they knew how to talk to me mentally. And that was so important for me. Cool. And then they were my coaches for probably like the last 4 years. Okay. Winning that pro show. And what's crazy is choosing them, I let like 4 other people down. Like I lost friends. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, because I had all these mentors and all these people I was listening to, and everybody wanted a hand in me climbing up. Yeah. And that was also very uncomfortable for me, because I could feel that people wanted a piece. Yeah. And I didn't want to let them down, and I almost wanted to give them a piece of my success, but it wasn't helping me. It wasn't what I needed. So then when I met them, they became my mentors, and they were texting me every day, like as it got close, and really just digging in. And they were like my mentors. Okay, outside of like the lessons that Kai Green taught me through his. And I remember being on the stepper. I had a magazine, Muscular Development. I probably still have it. And then there was another one, Iron Man, and I would flip through that before there were like podcasts. And I feel old even saying that, like I'm 28, like Jesus.
Yeah, I'm almost 32, so I mean, it's.
But it's crazy that there was a time before the time, right?
Yeah, it's when I was growing up, it was like muscle and fitness. Like I didn't really look at Iron Man, but it was magazines. Yeah, and like we're not old, like we're young people, but I mean. Yeah, times just change so fast. But,
And that's where I was cultivating a lot of and I never looked at the magazines. Like I never wanted to be a sponsored athlete. Right. I had zero interest in that. And that's why I really am to this day the worst sponsored athlete. Like I freaking hate having to post because I don't really care, and I don't take a lot of supplements. Yeah. But like I'm like the worst athlete like for that. I'm just not. So because that was never my goal. My goal was like that connection and that the physical like improvement and the mental spiritual improvement. So I looked at the magazines and saw that. and I was reading about like the science behind it, and that's when I was also getting my education in all of that. So I was almost relating the practice of bodybuilding to what I was learning in school, and for me it was all just connecting. And so so like my experience was kind of my mentorship. It's hard to put it on one person, because then it was Oprah at the end of like my after Kai Green, and then after I kind of learned my lessons with him, it was more the Oprah, the Eckhart Tolle, those kind of people who really formed my mind.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've mentioned a couple times, like continued education. I know you have a master's degree in exercise physiology. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so after you get done, so you're starting your first competition. Physique competition was when you were 19. Is that correct?
Yeah. Figure was 19. Physique was, I think, like 20, 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're, post high school. So where did you go to get your undergraduate degree? And then let's just talk about kind of like college, because you were going to get your degrees and stuff, and you were competing at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing a little bit, Dani, like kind of what was all of that, like kind of the balancing act for a young person going to college, a master's degree, also being very competitive, in physique competitions and things of that nature. What was kind of that time of life like for you?
It was super busy.
Right.
It was just live, eat, and breathe, just that bodybuilding and school and work. And so when I was so I started at Valencia Community College, because remember I didn't get into the college right away, but it was a blessing, because that was when I took my first weightlifting and nutrition class. And then I was like, all right, like this all makes sense. I did this in high school, and now I'm starting to put like a rhyme to the reason. And so I started to learn about it. I was 19, and then I was also serving. I was waiting tables. So I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings, up late, doing all that, trying to make money, pay rent, go to school. It was just like literally. So it was like one thing after the other. So I almost had to be structured. So like it worked out very nicely for me, because I didn't have very much wiggle room for anything. If I wasn't in the gym, I was at school. If I wasn't at school, I was working. So it was just one thing after the other. So I went to Valencia Community College first, took weightlifting classes, got my whatever it is, associates in size. Yeah. And then I got into UCF, because it was like you had to go right in. They have to accept you. So I was like, you guys have to accept me. And so then I went in for exercise science. And I didn't know that I wanted to get a master's at that point. I just really liked bodybuilding. And I wanted to find out more about nutrition and Krebs cycles and why I was eating carbs at this time. And so then I did that. And so I'm not even sure the age.
That's okay. I mean, we don't have to have... I mean, we just know you're early 20s.
Early 20s, yeah. I was competing in the NPC, and I never went to a football game. I wasn't really... If I went out and partied, it was like really hard for like 1 or 2 nights, and then I was out for the week, and that was just... So I wasn't like an all-the-time drinker and partier. I couldn't be. I was competing, and I always had these goals. So it was like one thing after the other. School, work, gym. That was it. And then, I was 22, got my pro card, and got accepted into the master's program.
Sweet.
I remember getting my pro card at nationals and coming back into one of my master's classes, and I walked in and everybody was clapping for me, because everybody in that, everybody kind of understood what competing was.
Right.
And they could see me just getting stupid shredded, and like, what are you doing? Why do you always eat in class? And like, so it kind of started to cultivate this thing. So I remember walking in and everybody cheering for me. And that was like one of the coolest feelings ever. And then I got accepted into the Human Performance Lab, which was you could work as a grad student in the Human Performance Laboratory. And then that gave me the liberty to stop serving, because I was kind of getting paid. And then I was also getting paid to teach undergraduate classes. So it was really a really cool dynamic for me to be competing and to be in the Human Performance Lab and then be teaching these undergraduate students. It was really cool. I was teaching like personal training methods, and in my classes, I don't know that I was supposed to, but we talked about steroids and we talked about like all these kind of controversial things, because I knew them. And so I really enjoyed that. And I competed at my first pro show, and I'll never forget. I actually watched the posing routine the other day. I didn't look how I really wanted to look for my pro debut. And it really upsets me, because I was helping like 4 people that were competing in the NPC show. I was helping them with posing and nutrition and diet and everything. So I always had people come over to my house. We had like open doors. It was just kind of a big thing. And so my grades kind of dropped one semester when I did that show, and I didn't look as great as I wanted to, and I actually got called out on freaking Facebook for it. And I was like, you guys, you have no idea. Like, I'm also getting my master's, you frick. Like, you know, like, and then they're like, this, how could this be on a pro, like some like asshole comment like that. And then I stopped competing for a year to finish my thesis and finish my master's, because my professor also had a sit down with me, and he's like, all right, so your grades are dropping. What about this competing thing? And I don't know that he understood how much I was into competing.
Right.
And so I finished my master's, hated my thesis. I did not want to do, like, I just wanted to compete. But so I finished it, graduated, and then like literally the minute I was graduating, I planned a show 14 weeks after that. And Kai Green was guest posing there, so I was just freaking out. And that was my second pro show. Then I got second. So I literally went from last to second. Couldn't wait to get out of school.
Right.
And it was that time where I was like, should I go for my PhD? Because I was really into the science of everything. I like teaching. But then I knew that if I go for my PhD, that meant no competing.
Right.
Because you can't, it was really hard to do two things really good like that.
Right. Yep.
So I chose competing, and I'm so freaking glad that I did, because way less school debt.
Right.
Jesus.
Right. Yeah.
Still in it, way in it. And then I started to do really good with competing. So making that choice to drop school and keep going, I got second, and then I started to do my pro stuff.
Okay.
And then I did probably like 7 or 8 shows before I actually got that Olympia qualification.
Right.
Okay, so before we get onto the Olympia stage, so you got your undergraduate degree, you got your master's degree, you're competing professionally in women's physique, right? Okay, so you turned pro in 2012, is that correct? At the nationals?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about. You mentioned steroids earlier, and I want to talk about kind of the dark side of competing as a IFBB pro. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people will look at somebody on the cover of a magazine or on Instagram now and all this different stuff, and you know, for people that are kind of behind the scenes of bodybuilding, it's pretty easy to kind of tell if somebody's not like quote-unquote 100% natural, just because of vascularity, and there's a lot of things that go into it. But most people are very ignorant to the dark side of bodybuilding, and I'm talking about like physique competing, even the bikini girls, IFBB bikini girls are taking stuff. Yeah. So if you don't mind, Dani, and for the listeners out there, I talked to Dani about this before we started the interview or whatever, but I just want you to talk about the dark side. So when did you first kind of learn about like steroids and like HGH and all these different things that a lot of competitive bodybuilders and physique athletes are on? Like when did that kind of come to the light for you personally? And I'm not necessarily saying like if or when you started taking them, but when did you just when were your eyes open to that dark side of competing and the drug use and drug abuse?
Mm-hmm. Probably after like my second show. So I was probably like 2021. Mm-hmm. And I could just see that there was a difference. And I knew it was kind of a thing in the NPC. Right. Like it's not tested. And to be honest, it's like rampant. Like everybody's taking, even people who you don't think are taking stuff are taking stuff. It's just their genetics don't allow great results for it. Yeah. But there's also a super safe way to do everything, but you have to be so careful and so aware and so educated. And part of the reason why I feel like I don't have that many repercussions and like side effects and consequences from it is because I did the research. I really looked up what I was about to take. Mm-hmm. And at first it started with like the fat burner, type drugs like clenbuterol, for example, or like even like the ECA, ephedra, caffeine, aspirin stack. Right. So first it kind of starts with the fat burning ones. And then I would say got a little more heavy. My coaches came to me and they're like, look, Dani, the people that you're competing against are going to be taking a lot of things. And really they are. They're taking what freaking men take, which is I think, mistake number one. Like, first of all. And I was presented with that. Like, it's not going to be apples to apples. You're a natural girl competing against people and this was like probably the pro state, probably when I was going to go get my pro card was when I was confronted with it the most.
Okay.
Because you're up there with girls who just don't even care what it takes to get whatever they want to get, which is a trophy. But then, like, what about the rest of your life? What about like your hormones and things like that? And I find that people don't even consider that. They just think, what can I do to get first? What is this girl doing? What is that girl doing? I want to do that and do more and more and more. And that is like not the right way to do anything. And so let's see what the first thing. I've never injected like tests. I've never done Tren. I've never done the one thing that I did do was Anavar. Super girly. It was originally designed for women and children with AIDS to prevent muscle wasting. Right. And so that's why I was pretty, comfortable taking it because it was very low androgens, not a lot of secondary sex hormones. Right. More so anabolic than anything. So that was like my first little thing, and honestly, that was the anabolic that I took for my whole career. Anavar. I didn't really take much more than that. But I was one of those people who I added one thing in at a time. It's like, okay, this show I'm going to try a little bit of Anavar and see how that works. Next show I'm going to try a little bit of Clen with Anavar and see how that works. And I find that if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it, because you don't add in a bunch of things at once and then your body's reacting all these different ways. But there are some bikini girls that are on more than I was on a pro Olympia stage. Yeah. There are girls who are doing their first show taking all of these drugs. And it's really just like, it makes me really upset because obviously their coach is an idiot. Yep. Number one. And then I don't even want to say it's the competitor's fault because they're paying these coaches, they're confiding in them, they're listening to them, and these coaches are prescribing these drugs that are not even right for a bikini competitor to take. And like, it's just it's the blind leading the blind, unfortunately. But it's also the judges' fault because they're the ones awarding more conditioned, more striated, and how the hell are you going to get that as a female without taking drugs? I've tried it, and it's really, really hard to do. And so, especially with the fat burning, and like you have to get your ass striated, and as a girl with female hormones and estrogen, it's like nearly impossible to get the result that they're awarding for first place. So everybody's chasing this look, and it's so hard to get that in the NPC without doing drugs. Right. And maybe some people can do it. I have never come across anybody that could. And kind of if they tell you that they're natural, they're really not. Like I've tried, and I will tell you that I don't think anybody has outworked me, especially on my Olympia days. The reason why I didn't have to take all these hard drugs that the other girls did was because I was like mental case. I was doing cardio. I was at absolute mental case, stinky kid in the gym, hoodies on, waist trainers on, everything to get myself super shredded. Right. And I was never the biggest girl on stage. I competed at 115 pounds. So really, like, how many? And I saw these girls with their faces changed, their voices changed, their skin, everything. And I saw so much of it around me that I was so careful. And even some of my coaches were like, hey, Dani, try this and this and this. And I was like, no. And I would always have to pull it back and tell them, hey, I'm not comfortable. And they were always really cool with like, are you comfortable with this? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, Winnie, for example, I was never ever comfortable taking Winnie, and I'm surprised looking back now that I was able to get as hard as I was without it. But like, that's the immediate changes to your voice and your hair thinning and so many adverse effects that I wish everybody would just look at. And there's something to be said about working harder and working smarter, not doing more drugs and working that way. Like you can do it another way. Right. I do think that in the NPC, to compete with what they're awarding first, second, the first, through 5, they're big, they're striated, they're lean, they're hard, they're vascular. This is what the judges are awarding. And so in order to get that, there are certain things that you have to do to be competitive. Right. And if the judges weren't awarding that, then I don't think there would be as many drugs. Right. I really don't. Like, even in the natural competitions, there's not drugs, but these still look amazing. Right. They still look, and I even toy with going natural and competing naturally. But that's just a thought that comes and goes. But there is a real dark side to bodybuilding, and I just wish that people would take it one step at a time if they're going to do it. And there are some things that can be taken very safely, and there are some things that can be taken not safely. And I hear about girls taking Tren. And that is like one of the dirtiest drugs, even for a male to take. Right. It's like one shot and they're aggressive and just it's like crazy. And I hear females are taking that, and I'm like, have you done any research? Do you know anything? And then even like testosterone. I'm sure there are, right? Like, I'm sure there are hormone replacement therapy doctors who can prescribe that to you. Great, that's fine. But like, you're taking testosterone. And like, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
You know? And there are definitely, it's like, I don't know. It's literally the blind leading the blind. Mm-hmm. And I blame the coaches and I blame the judges. I don't really blame the competitors so much because they want to win.
Yeah.
They want to look good. And I've been on that side of the thing, and you're like, you're teetering this line where you're like, I want to win first. Like, I want to do whatever it takes. And you have to really like stop and think about yourself and your decisions and where you want to go. And it's a really, really hard thing for a competitor to toy with. And then once you make that decision to go that route, then it's like there's no turning back. And then once you're done with competing, and when you're in it, man. Like, you are tunnel vision. You can't even see the world. You have to be.
You have to be.
And I didn't even see a world outside of competing until I like finally was like, maybe I should do something else. And then it was like real reality check.
Right.
But like, you almost don't even see it, so you don't even care what you're doing to your body. Like, you're like, yeah, I'll try GH, yeah, I'll try this and that, because you want to win. Mm-hmm. You want to win, and you want to get your pro card, and you want to be on that Olympia stage. And so it got to a point where I was at a point, like my last Olympia, where I was like, I really don't want to take any more drugs than I'm taking right now. Like, it's like a constant thing where I'm worried about, is my voice changing? I'm like looking in the mirror for, how's my jaw? How's my face? Am I getting a mustache? And it's like a constant worry that's always there. And so that was one of the things that made me want to kind of like stop and pull out of bodybuilding, was because I was always worried about that. And I was like at this point where I was like, okay, so I'm being told I need to get bigger because I'm competing at 115 pounds. And like, to get bigger, what is that going to take? Like, more drugs, probably. That's kind of what everybody was hinting at.
Right.
And I just was like, I'm kind of at that line where I'm like, that's as much as I want to take. I don't want to wear and the dark side to bodybuilding is also the waist trainers. And like, these things that we do to our bodies and the uncomfortable things that we do. Like, I didn't want to wear a waist trainer. I didn't want to wear 2 waist trainers. I mean, and that's a freaking thing.
Now, for somebody out there that doesn't know what that is, what is that?
It's one of those it's like a corset.
Okay.
And like, sometimes there's like a waist trainer that's like a latex corset with metal hooks, and you wear it kind of under your, and like, right, it even just sounds like freaking insane. Mm-hmm. And I there was a place and a time for me. But it got to the point where everybody's waists are getting smaller and their muscles are getting bigger. So it's like more drugs, more waist training. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm at this line where I'm like right there, like, I can't work any harder than I am without like passing out every day.
Right.
And so, so there was a line, and I just, the dark side was very easy for me to, I could have definitely taken that next step. Like, it was there's a ton of things that I haven't tried that I could have tried, but I think there's a line that we need to draw with ourselves and boundaries. And like, I just didn't want to, go past it. And it's a very real thing. So if you're looking at girls on Instagram, and this is inside and out, these girls on Instagram look fantastic, right? They post their best pictures. Some of them are probably airbrushed and photoshopped and all of this. So I encourage people not to get too caught up in how perfect these Instagram models look. Even myself, because I had some really awesome pictures on there, but just know I was supplementing. I was literally eating, a crazy diet. I was working out all freaking day to look like that. So you have to understand that there's a dark side to bodybuilding. There's a dark side to Instagram. And it comes with drugs and comes with a mental struggle of food, an eating disorder, body dysmorphic disorder. These girls that you're seeing are a pretty picture, but behind the scenes, there's a lot more that goes into that.
Yeah.
So I do want to, speak on that. And not to say that there aren't Instagram models out there that are doing it naturally and that are doing it really beautifully and holistically. And now that's my goal, is to do that. But I just want people to know that there's a mental and physical and supplemental struggle that's going on behind the scenes of these pictures of these girls that are super jacked. And, there's a healthy way to do it. And not that everybody's doing that. So don't get super caught up in wanting to be like them and look like them. And then why you might not be getting the results that they are getting is because there's a whole other thing that I don't even know that you really want to take part in.
Right.
So just understand that also.
That's beautiful, and I appreciate you, Dani, being open and sharing that, because the reality is that physique competitors. I'm talking about bodybuilding, bikini, actual physique, all that stuff. When I say physique, I'm just talking about people that stand on a stage to present their physique. Physique competitors on the outside, and I'm generally speaking. I'm, you know, especially specific like at NPC and that type of stuff. On the outside, they look amazing, but a lot of times, and I'm a 100% natural athlete, but even for me, body image issues, eating issues, like we can look really, really, really amazing on the outside, and that's for a short amount of time that somebody's going to look like that, like dialed in and all that. But then a lot of times, like you mentioned, Dani, like the physique competitors, the bodybuilder type people are some of the most unhealthy on the inside. And that's where it's like I want the listeners to understand. It's like there's certain lines that are drawn, and like you were talking about, Dani, it's like if you cross one of those lines, like you're in it deeper. And usually once you get into it deeper, it's more neuroticism, it's just more ego, it's more selfishness, it's more drugs, it gets going darker and darker and darker. So I think the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway, Dani, is like just be you. Like who are you? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because, and you said too, like having those boundaries. And for me, it's like when I was younger in my early 20s, it's like, you know, the thought of taking steroids and stuff, like it crossed my mind all the time because I'm like, dude, like
every day.
If I stand next to a dude that's on steroids, like I look like I don't even work out. You know what I mean? And I had to make that decision. Like that's a line that I'm personally not going to cross. So I think for you listeners out there, if you are, you know, competing in some type of bodybuilding arena, and you haven't started to take drugs, and you're thinking about it or looking into it, just know like once you cross that line, you're crossing that line, and some of those drugs are tainted. A lot of times, I think a lot of people don't even know where they're coming from. If they're coming from China, whatever. There's just a lot. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. There's no coming back. And I know here recently in the professional bodybuilding world, there's been a handful of deaths. You know, IFBB pro bodybuilders and coaches and things like that. And it's just crazy. So. Know who you are, know those lines, and just know once you cross some of those lines, there's probably no going back. So I thank you for talking about that and being open. And before we leave this, if there is specifically a female that's listening to this, Dani, and you know they're you know being like, let's say just like competing, you know, in bikini or physique or something like that, kind of naturally, and they're really thinking about, you know, maybe competing in the NPC, or kind of like the whole IFBB thing is really appealing to them. Mm-hmm. Would you just speak to that woman in regards to what they need to think about before they maybe cross one of those lines into drug use and entering into kind of that darker side of competing in physique competitions? Yeah,
I would say do your research first. Read, no matter what your coach is telling you, do your research. They're called anabolic androgenic steroids, AAS. And anabolic is your growth, that's how you grow. Androgenic is the male secondary sex hormones. And then the steroids is the steroid part. So you really want something that is low androgen. So do your research. Make sure that you are picking something that is super, super, super mild. Don't just listen to the bro at the gym who's trying to give you trenbolone or testosterone, because you don't need that. And take it super, super slow. I'm talking like a milligram at a time. Like if you really are going to do that, and I understand wanting to win. I have been there. And I understand wanting to do better at competing. So take it, do your research, take it one step at a time. If you're going to add something in, add in a little bit of that one thing, do a whole show prep with that. See how you look with that lean and dialed down. And then after that, regroup and see what it is that you might need next. But the whole time, make sure you have your boundaries. Like, know what you don't want to look like. Be aware at these bodybuilding shows. Like, look around. Look at the bodies that you see. Listen to the voices you see. Look at the jawlines. Look at all these girls that have been dabbling for a very long time into the very heavy steroids. And look at how they're changing. And awareness be aware. I would say above all else, aware of your coach, what they're giving you, aware of the bro science and what they're giving you, aware of what drugs do, aware of like do your own research and, you know, look them up for yourself, and be aware show to show. Like add in something that's a little bit of this, and then run with that, see how that goes. And then a little bit of this, run with that, see how that goes. Because I don't want to tell you not to take it, because I know you're going to take something. Especially if you're competing in the NPC, the bikini girls that you're competing against are probably taking as much as some of the physique girls. I know, I've met them, I've seen their profiles. And so keep your wits about you and just be aware, know where you don't want to go. Be aware of your jawline, be aware of your voice, listen to that shit, ask people, am I changing? And it stinks to even have this conversation and be like, am I changing? And the fact that I'm sorry that you even have to teeter that line. But I understand wanting to win. And I understand wanting to do well. And I understand, and also understand that there's no magic pill and there's no magic oil or injectable or anything that's going to fix your body for you. You literally have to work like a mental case. If you're going to take steroids or anything like that, your diet needs to be 100% spot on. And so does your training. Or the steroids that you're taking are going to be for nothing. You're going to be altering your body chemistry for nothing. So make sure if you're adding in something, you're also kicking up your training and kicking up your nutrition. And that's what's going to take you to the top. It's not the steroids. It's not. It's the learning and it's the growing inside before you add in anything. So my advice to you, if you're a new aspiring competitor who wants to do well and who wants to win these shows that these judges are awarding, bigger, faster, stronger, harder, leaner, more muscular. Take it step by step, take it show by show, take it supplement by supplement, milligram by milligram, super, super slow and educated and controlled. And then you'll be able to last a lot longer. You know, you'll be able to take a lot less and last a lot longer. And that's the idea in this sport. It's not how do I get the biggest, the fastest, because that's also going to come with bigger, faster repercussions. So just understand that whatever you take, there's an equal and an opposite to that. And I understand wanting to do better. So I understand you wanting to dabble. But understand dabbling safely and understand also dabbling unsafely and where that can also lead you. And you believe me when I say there's a life after bodybuilding, and it comes quicker than you think. And you're going to be able to want to speak with your voice, and you're going to be able to want to look like a girl and not shave your face every day. And just know that there's a life after the stage. And if you want to keep that how it is now, be super careful.
Beautiful. Thank you. So before we completely walk away from the competition stuff, you competed on two of the biggest stages in the world. That being the Arnold. I think it's called it was Arnold Classic, but I think it's still the Arnold something. I can't remember the after the Classic.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even.
There's things that always change. But so the Arnold Classic, you compete on that stage. The second biggest bodybuilding show in the world, and then you've mentioned it several times, you've competed on the biggest bodybuilding stage in the world, the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, and that's the Mr. Olympia, or the Miss Olympia, however you want to word that, the Olympia stage. So having that opportunity to compete at literally the highest level for women's physique, what were those two experiences like for you personally? And then we'll move out of this, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing a little bit, because it's for me and some of the listeners out there, it's looking at the magazines, you've been in magazines and all this different stuff. It's so amazing for me to be able to talk to you and ask an IFBB pro some of these questions, because we just see this stuff in person or on the internet or Instagram, and it's dude, wow, it's crazy. So just kind of give us a little insight into how amazing that was in competing in those two shows.
Oh, it was literally a dream come true.
Right.
I always knew I would be on that stage. So I can't say it was a surprise or it was unbelievable, because I always had to believe in myself that I would get there. And it was just I was just, as soon as I started competing, I wanted to be a pro. As soon as I started being a pro, I wanted to be on that Olympia stage. And it was just one thing after the other. So when I was standing up there, I remember looking around and just taking in everything. And time was definitely standing still, but I wasn't anywhere near, I wasn't blacked out. I black out kind of when I do my posing routine.
Right.
But when I was standing up there kind of waiting and posing, I was like, holy shit, I made it. And I just felt like, oh my God, here I am. Like, I did it. And then getting ready for it, though, that was the real journey. That was the real spiritual point.
Right.
Because you're competing for this is the show that you signed up for. This is the reason why I literally started when I was 19, is for this prep.
Right.
For getting ready for the Olympia. That's something that is even almost better than being on the Olympia stage, is getting ready for that shit.
Right.
Because you have 8 weeks of, or 10, 12, 15 weeks of cultivating, this mindset. And competing on the biggest stages has been my greatest teacher in so many ways. Bodybuilding has been my greatest teacher, my greatest master, has taught me everything about goal setting, persevering, believing in yourself, having faith, having trust. Like, it has taught me everything. And so when I look at pictures of myself on stage, I miss what it took to get there. And I miss the smile I have on my face. But I'm not smiling because I'm on the Olympia stage. I'm smiling because I accomplished what I set out to. And I'm up there living it, doing a damn good job at it. And that's what I miss, if anything, is that feeling. And then being... it's so crazy because it's just like I see the pictures of it now. It's almost like a different life.
Yeah.
It feels like a different, like a life, like a whole new thing that I used to live.
Well, it is kind of, in a sense, right? We're going to get there.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to peace and where you're at today. But it is. It is not saying you can't go back to that life, but even if you do go back to that life, like that competing on that type of a stage or that level, like, you're going to be a different Dani.
Yeah.
So that is a past season. It is a past life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah.
Because right now you're different, and you're going to continue to move in a different direction, even if you step back on the stage. You know?
And like, so weird because I don't even know if I will. At this point, I don't want to be the person I was before, because there was a lot going on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about the mental struggles and everything. So when I see pictures of myself, it's also two-sided.
Yeah.
But I felt very accomplished. But then there's also this thing, like, being a women's physique competitor, like, we didn't get to go on the big stage. We didn't get to go on the big Olympia stage. So that was also kind of a freaking letdown.
Yeah.
Because, yes, I was at the Olympia, but I looked behind me and it was like an expo stage. Like, it wasn't the real big that we all fucking worked for. Yeah. And so that was totally heart-wrenching and almost made me... I feel bad for the girls who are up there, because I was one of them, and we work for this Olympia stage, but it's like the second rated Olympia stage. But we do all the cardio that the boys do, and the bikini girls, how do they get to go on the big stage? Like, I'm doing, I'm risking more of my body. I'm more conditioned, so there's also this thing where I was like, but the part for me that was always the best was the expo after. Because that's where I got to meet my people. Right. And oh my God, the first Arnold that I did, actually the only Arnold I did, I think I did it once. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I think so, yeah, I got second.
Okay.
Because it was this one that I did was so impactful. And that was where all the numbers and all the synchronicities and things started happening. It was like insane.
Right.
And then after I got second, and that was a really hard prep for me. But where I really came to life was the expo after. I mean, there was a line of people waiting to talk to me.
Right.
And I remember looking at the line and just crying, because I couldn't believe that these people wanted to talk to me like that. And so that's what I remember. I remember the stage, but it was when I come off stage, I wouldn't even get to my family yet, and people were already almost at the curtain, Dani. And it didn't matter whether I got first or second or sixth or whatever, and they still wanted to be a part and take pictures and talk to me. And so what I remember probably the most vividly is meeting people after the show. And the impact, and when they would call my name. I remember, I still, even to this day, if I listen to the call outs for the Olympia and they say number 22, Dani Reardon, and then the crowd fucking yells and they go crazy, and like that still brings me to tears to this day, and gives me goosebumps, and like that feeling you'll never. What I learned was that no trophy will ever take that spot. And when I lost the Olympia, I thought I was going to win, and I didn't. That whole thing, the people still wanted me, and they like almost caught me from the heartbreak of not winning. And like 2016, my coaches got me a cake that said "Congrats, Miss O." That was when I got second at the Olympia, and everybody thought I won. I thought I won. I mean, I was more conditioned. I had everything I thought, and that was, and I think that's when I started to really that was when the heartbreak went through a whole new year, another year of competing again and again. And this goes back to what you were saying about being yourself. Because I got second, I remember the judges telling me, "Oh, you're too striated, you're too conditioned," and I was like, "Isn't this what this is about?" I remember the work I put in I did bike sprints for 35 minutes with a waist trainer on, hot stuff, a hoodie, and then I worked too hard, and I was like, so then the next year when I got sixth, I was too soft. I was out of the top 5. I couldn't come back because I tried to come in a little softer, and I should have just came in what I thought was the best, which was the most amount of work possible. You come in as striated as possible. And because I tried to listen to what the judges wanted, I fell short, disqualified, can't come back. And then and it just goes to show about being, totally being 100% like yourself.
Yes.
And also this goes to say about the posing routines and the songs that we choose. And I think that if we choose songs that really affect us, and everyone in my posing routines, they're also, one of them's Pink, one of them's Star Wars, and because I took on this thing about I wanted to be a Jedi and work with the light side, and that was probably one of the last lessons that bodybuilding really taught me, was using the light side of the Force. And kind of being a beacon of good vibes, and a force for good, a force for light, and so that was actually my Arnold routine. It started off with Yoda saying, "Judge me by my size, do you?" or something like that, and that I loved being on stage because I wanted to portray a certain way. I wanted to portray a certain way of doing bodybuilding. We don't need to complain about cardio and complain about dieting.
Right.
You want to do cardio because you want to win this shit, not because you want to lose it, and because there's a whole thing about working with fear and working with love, right? So the Jedis and the light side and the dark side. So Darth Vader rules with fear, and you don't want to step out of line or he's going to choke you with his fingers or whatever. And there's this whole dark side. And I feel most of the bodybuilding industry works and competes and does these things with the dark side in mind because they're afraid to lose.
Right.
Not because they love to win. And there's this whole Jedi mindset that I really wanted to cultivate and show people. Do cardio because you love to win and because you love to succeed and because you love this sport. Not because you hate the sport. Do cardio because you love the sport and because you want to really shine. And there's a whole thing about resisting the dark side, resisting the ego mentality of bodybuilding. And that's when the hoodie started to come on. So my last couple of years, I would train in a hoodie, do cardio in a hoodie. Not many people saw what I looked like in the gym because for me, it wasn't about looking a certain way. It was about being a certain way. And it was when I worked out with a hoodie on, number one, I thought I had more mind-muscle connection because when you cut off one of the senses, you cut off your sight, you can't see your muscles working anymore. What are you left with? You're left with your body and your mind.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I love the hoodie. I love the hoodie also because it took away the ego mentality. I knew how good I looked. I didn't need everybody else in the gym looking at who my show was on the stage, not in the gym. And then for me, the hoodie, I had this Star Wars hoodie that said hoodie up, and we sold it with Fit Hustle, my sponsors. And I remember getting Snapchats from people with the hoodie on, and they were doing cardio, just sweating their face off, and they'd be like, "Oh, Dani, hoodie up," and they would send me the hashtag. And that was probably one of the most rewarding things because not only were they working out harder in the hoodie, they put it on and they didn't care what anybody else saw that they looked like. They were also taking away their own ego mentality, and they didn't even know it. So there were so many things that were being cultivated with the hoodie and with the Jedi, and being on these big stages and trying to use it as a platform for good.
Right.
That I really loved about being on those big, huge stages was posing to a song that wasn't cool. It was more emotional and made you cry. And so there was the big stages for me, I looked at as a platform in the later years. But it also came with, the dark side of bodybuilding also.
And as you're sharing, one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time is Jay Cutler, four-time Mr. Olympia.
Cool.
And I think he's somebody that is kind of working out of love and on that positive light platform. Because even to this day, like his following on social media, YouTube, Instagram, I mean, it's just through the roof. And he hasn't competed, I think, his last time he competed was, I want to say, like 2013, so it's been like 6 years.
Okay.
But I mean, he's still got an amazing following, and like I watched his YouTube stuff, follow him on Insta stories, and he's a bright light, and he's a great ambassador. Whether he would have ever won a Mr. Olympia or not, I think he got like 6, 7 in a row or something, seconds to Ronnie Coleman on the male side of bodybuilding. But like he just does it the right way. Like I don't know how familiar you are with Jay Cutler. I'm sure you've been around him, or I know you know who he is. But he's one of those people in a culture that can be very dark. That is a bright light to me personally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Jay Cutler is definitely doing it the right way, and did it the right way. So all right, so we're rocking and rolling. We're already an hour and 14 minutes. So we've covered a lot, and now I want to end with who Dani is today, and I want to talk about the shift that's happened in your life. Because like we just talked about a few minutes ago, like you've had this life, very competitive, elite, like top of the top, and there's been a shift in your life personally. Okay, you moved from Florida, right, out to Colorado, and then there's just a lot of other things that are going on. And I personally have followed you on Instagram for probably 3 or 4 years, and like just reading through some of your recent posts and stuff, I was like, okay, there's been a shift in this chick's life, and I want to. And then I saw like a Colorado like hat or sweatshirt that maybe you or your husband had on, and I'm like, what? She's like in Colorado. Like, I gotta get on my podcast. So I just want you as much as you want to share, kind of like what was the shift, and how did that all come to be? Because you really were talking about during your competitive years, like it was more than just kind of going through the motions of bodybuilding. There was a spiritual experience. You mentioned the mentorship of Kai Green and things of that nature, and just kind of being one with your body, one with the muscle, and all that type of stuff that a lot of people in bodybuilding and competing don't really understand. So it sounds like that kind of like spiritual side, and there was always a different side of you within kind of the darkness within bodybuilding. But what is this shift that has happened in regards to you being out here in Colorado and kind of like having this I want to say maybe a fresh awakening in your life?
Well, so much has happened since bodybuilding, but it's been like the best shift possible, but it's been the most scary, confusing, existential crisis, identity shift of my life. And like my choice to hang up bodybuilding was probably one of the hardest,
right? Because
I was so in it, and it's all of who I am. It was the only thing I was doing. Like I literally put all of my eggs in one basket, and I think, that's why the opposite of that was so hard, right? Because I was just bodybuilding, and that was all that I really cared about and saw since I graduated school. It was the only thing I did, only thing I wanted to do, and I did it really well. And so, like you were saying, like the spiritual side of bodybuilding for me started to grow and grow and grow, and I started to become more introspective and less about the ego, and started to really understand what the ego is and how it all plays into all of this. And I started to compete. My last year or two, a lot of it was for my followers, and I really loved the connection I had with them, and I almost wanted to do well because they were watching me and looking up to me, and a lot of people were saying, if you can do it, I can do it. So I felt a lot of good pressure, because I wanted to show them that they could do it. I wanted to show them the way. This is how you could do it the right way, right, with love instead of fear. And so that was the hardest part for me. I remember sending back my suit. I was going to get ready for the Arnold as a vegan. So first thing that happened was I wanted to go vegan. My last Olympia, probably 8 weeks out, I asked my coach, I'm like, hey, can we switch all my chicken to tofu or to tempeh? And he was like, Dani, that's literally a Hail Mary before the biggest show of your life. And I was like, but, I had all these things in my head. I didn't agree with this. I even started to do cooking videos online as I was prepping, vegan, because I was feeding that to Ian, my husband, because he went before I did. And I kind of convinced my whole family that my sister went. And it wasn't even really convincing. It was just a couple things. And I was like, yo, look at this. And so that happened first. And so when I was backstage at the Olympia, I threw out all of my meat containers. Very dramatic for me because I couldn't wait to stop eating meat. In fact, I couldn't even eat chicken anymore because it looked too much like a muscle. Right. And it was like this compassion thing that happened. And I just wanted to be compassionate to animals, to myself, to like this whole thing that happened. So backstage at the Olympia, threw out all my meat containers, haven't touched meat since. Then it was like eggs and dairy that I cut out a little bit later. So then I got married 2 months after the Olympia. So people think post-show depression is bad. Well, I literally, the two things I had been working on for 10 years, my relationship and my competing, literally came to a close. And I accomplished two things that I wanted to accomplish. And then I was like, I literally don't even know what to do with my life. Like, I don't want to compete anymore because it just doesn't feel right. And so I made the choice to hang up. First I quit Redcon 1, which was my sponsors. Yeah. And I always hated to be sponsored. The money was always nice because I wasn't working at the time. I was just bodybuilding, and luckily Ian had a good job to where he could support most of us. So I always took the sponsorship to help out with money. But it literally, I think that's what ruined bodybuilding for me, was me having to post on Instagram. And like, my Instagram following is honestly by accident. Like, I never played the Instagram game. I never wanted followers. I didn't really care. I love everybody that I have, and I'm grateful for every single last one of them and their individual beautifulness, but I never wanted a following. And right. Even now, it's really hard for me to post and keep up with that because, like, I just don't care how many followers I have. I care about the impact I have on the ones that are following me, but I really don't care how many followers I have or you have or anybody else. Like, and the fact that it's currency right now, and people want to talk to you because of your following. Honestly, they want to hire me because of my following. Yep. And it bothers me to my absolute core. Because to me, that's an ego thing that everybody's chasing. And I'm sorry that I have so many followers. And I feel like I let a lot of people down because I don't know how to play the Instagram game. And I don't post and do all of these things. So that was, like, honestly really hard for me. But I loved the interaction that I had with the fans, and I call them my tribe because I don't like the word follower. I don't like the word fan. It separates too much of us. And so that was also always really uncomfortable for me. So I like the word tribe. And so the first thing that I started to quit was the sponsors, because every time I opened up my phone, I had this bad feeling about, I need to post for them. I haven't posted all week. Oh my God. And then I was like, if I wanted to post something about myself, I felt bad because I wasn't posting about them. Right. So I hated that. So the first thing I did was quit them. And, like, everyone's like, what are you doing? You know, they're giving you X amount of money each month. They're the fastest growing supplement company. Aaron Singerman is right down the street from me, whatever. But, like, I honestly hated every minute of it. So the first thing I did was quit that. And I was like, oh my God, that felt awesome. Big weight off my back. And then after that, I went and did ayahuasca in Orlando, and it wasn't like a super, like, intense experience. Like, everybody, like there were definitely, I was definitely, tripping, quote unquote, and it definitely changed my perspective on Mother Earth and nature and what I kind of wanted to do, and it really gave me a deep appreciation for the planet and what we're doing to it, and then really what we're doing to our bodies, and then that started my thinking just about being, like, more peaceful in life and like how we are to our environment and to everything. And so I started to prep for the Arnold as a vegan, and everything was working fine. Like, my muscles looked the same. I was getting lean just the same, but something just wasn't connecting with me. And we were having money issues or financial issues, and we moved like 3 times. And then we had all this debt from the wedding, all this debt from the Olympia. Like, I didn't, we put all this money into it, even more so than we thought. And I got 6, came back with 0 prize money, which was my salary, basically. So we were way in the hole. Wedding, Olympia, and we're just like, oh my God, we just need to catch up. So we start selling health insurance. And, oh my God. And then we moved across town. I literally stopped going to the gym for a year. When I decided to stop competing, I literally could not walk into a gym without crying and just almost like PTSD from it. I didn't even know how to act. And working out for me just wasn't the same because I had no purpose. I had no show. And since I was 15, I was competing for one show after the other, and I didn't even know how to work out to be healthy. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know how to eat healthy. So we sold health insurance, probably the most soul-sucking experience of my life. I was a telemarketer. Oh my frick. But me and Ian both did it, my husband, so we were both doing it, and we were also doing it around like some of our best friends who were making a lot of money. So he was, he did the right thing by pulling us in there, trying to help us, But we were promised all this money over open enrollment. Didn't happen. Like, not even close. We were literally putting rent on credit cards. So that was literally, I'm coming out of like probably the most hardest year and a half of my life. So I got married, relationship, got that taken care of, bodybuilding, got that taken care of. Now we have zero money, putting rent on credit cards. Me and Ian are super stressed, almost didn't make it. Like, we're still recovering as a relationship from that.
Right.
Like it's only been 5 months since we have moved here. So we were at the point where we were like, okay, we need to start over completely with life anyway, because he was out of his career that we were making, $70K, pretty comfortable.
Yep.
And to making zero, putting rent on credit cards. Like, food was on credit cards, everything, and we were just promised this money, didn't happen. And not only did I not have money, I didn't have my body anymore, completely unfit, like just doing so many things that were just like spiraling, just unhealthy habit after the next. So we were like, all right, we need to start over anyway. So it was either Miami, because, there were other things going on there, or Colorado. And I did not want to be in Florida anymore. Right. Like I said, I started to grow this deep appreciation for nature. Yep. Just wanted to be in it. And Miami didn't feel good. Florida didn't feel good. It was just more of the superficial bullshit that I was used to. Yep. And I wanted to be so far away from people caring about what they look like that I just wanted to run from everything that was bodybuilding. So my sister lives here in Colorado. She's been living here for like 3 years. And here, nature is on steroids. Yep. So if you want nature and you want, that is where...
It's a good way to put it, Dani.
Yeah, nature on steroids. And I stare at it every day, and I drive towards the mountain every day. And sometimes it really does bring me to tears, because I was left with like nothing after life after bodybuilding for me was literally rock bottom, ground zero. And so moving to Colorado, the two things that felt good, that felt right, because honestly my husband didn't even feel right. Like, I was like, I don't even know, like after, like I don't even know about this whole thing. And we've been together 8 years,
right?
So so my sister lives in Colorado. That was a good feeling. Nature was in Colorado. That was a good feeling. Those are literally the only two things that felt good in my life. And I didn't want to be in a big box gym doing bicep curls every day,
right? And
so I could do a lot of things outdoors here. And I could be fit outdoors, riding a bike or walking, or like just doing more stuff outside and not being in the humidity of Florida and breathing through a washcloth.
Yeah.
So we moved here, 5-6 months ago. January 1st, packed up the dogs in the Jeep in Wilson, it's my Jeep, and we left and just moved, and we moved here without jobs. So coming out, we're used to not making money, right? And putting things on credit, because we're like, fuck it, what's another couple months?
Yeah.
And so Ian finally got into the industry that he wanted to be in, because he didn't want to do what he wanted to do anymore. And then I started doing group fitness training with my sister. And that was the first introduction back into the fitness world that I had outside of bodybuilding, was group fitness. And it has been the most enlightening, awesome experience of my life. I love sort of being a fitness cheerleader. I'm not like the form Nazi. I don't know a ton of exercises. I can't just come up with things off the top of my head, because I was just good at doing the exercises, not that I could just come up with them.
Yeah.
So it's been a really great introduction for me back into fitness, is doing group fitness training, because I fell in love with the members. Like, I love the members and I love helping them and just being there for people. And so that leads me into this whole identity crisis. Like, I have dreads. I don't even know it. And it's this whole earthy thing. And now, instead of living a life of, I don't want to say fitness, because fitness can be a whole different thing, but bodybuilding and Instagram and looking a certain way, I really just want to live a life of service and like helping people. And right now I clean a yoga studio, I scrub toilets for a free yoga membership. Like, look, people would never... Like, if I would love for people to know, second place at the Olympia is now scrubbing toilets for a free membership. Mm-hmm. Like, please understand the value in scrubbing toilets, because I feel so great. I look forward to doing it, because I love serving this place that has given me a new light of myself. And yoga to me has done that. So I start yoga teacher training in like 3 weeks. And I'm super excited about that. Not because I want to teach yoga. I'm excited about the personal journey that it's going to take me on. And out of that, I will be the teacher that I want to be. So I'm into group fitness training with F45 right now. And I love it. I love the members. And I'm also doing another group fitness, another personal training studio. I don't love that so much because I like more high energy things. And then I'm really into yoga. And so coming back around to peace in my life, cutting out the supplement company, that was number one social media piece. Then I cut out social media for a year. I went MIA for like a year and a half. Yeah. That was way more peace. So cutting those, like all this noise, this bodybuilding noise of counting macros and being on this stage, drinking this much water and posting this and these and like it's just so many things. So I just cut out all of this noise from my life. And now I'm a lot more peaceful because I don't have a lot of these things, and I'm starting to live. To me, serving is peace. Being there for people is peaceful. Yoga is peaceful, and nature is peaceful. Family is sometimes peaceful. But just being in this environment where I cut out all of this noise and this ego and this negativity, and I'm just looking for more divine influence in nature, in peace, in yoga. And then helping people and being there for them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I'm going to serve the world yet. I don't know if it's through veganism. I don't know if it's through animal rights and sanctuaries. I went to one of those things yesterday. Yeah. I don't know. But my platform is social media and YouTube. And there's so many things. So I would love to... What I'm trying to figure out now, just coming out of this health insurance thing and this whole identity shift, is how do I serve and like make people happy? Because I feel like that is the greatest gift that we can give to the world, is to add to their happiness. It's kind of like one of those selfish, selfless things. And I feel like the goal in life is to live a life worth meaning to other people. Like I want to be meaningful to other people, and I want to serve other people and contribute to their happiness. However that might be, I don't know how it is yet. But coming from this world that was super kind of selfish and isolated and really just for you and your trophy, the more that I started to want to be there for other people, the less I wanted to do that for myself. Right. But then there is that thing about doing, shining so other people can shine. So super tangent, and I don't even know where we started.
You're good. We're just talking about the shift.
Okay.
It's beautiful. You're good.
Okay.
You're good, yeah.
So that's where I am now, and I'm kind of like in this place where I don't really know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it. But I know that I want to serve, and I know that I want to make people happy. Like I almost want to be like a monk, like this modern monk that lives a life of service. And I don't mind cooking and cleaning and doing the nitty gritty work for people. I enjoy that. But I don't know what that looks like going forward.
I want to ask you a question. So who is right now in this moment on this podcast, who is Dani?
Who?
And I ask that because my personal journey is, and what I really share a lot on the podcast, and a reoccurring theme with most of my guests on this podcast, is in order for us to move forward in life, in order for us to serve and to give and to reach our highest potential as a human being, we first have to know who we are, why we're here on this earth, and kind of like what we're all about. And now I understand that you've gone through this shift and you're trying to figure all of that out, but right now in this moment, who is Dani? And it's okay if there's nothing that you clearly have to share. It's okay. You don't have to try to come up with something. But that's just what I want you to take away from our time together.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident like you're trying to move in that direction of kind of like who you are and trying to figure things out. But like you have, and we were texting back and forth. I said I really wanted you on here, and I know that you sharing your story today is going to powerfully impact people and the world. Like you have been given so much to give. You know what I mean? Like you have so much that has been given to you to give, and it starts with you sharing your story, which you're doing today. But like there's just so much that's before you, Dani. So I just whatever, because like I've gone through, like, you know, I grew up going to church in a very conservative home and different things, and done a lot of mission work and serving and all that, and that is absolutely necessary, I believe. To go through that type of stuff. Like when I moved out here, guess what I was doing paying bills? I was pushing carts at Walmart, okay? And I was working for my half-brother doing some construction stuff. But my bills are getting paid by pushing carts at Walmart. Mm-hmm. Bachelor's degree in exercise science, all this stuff, personal training, all kinds of different things. So there's that season of life, and there's that time where we need to be like doing the nitty-gritty and realizing like, hey, we're just like everybody else, we're a human being. But what I've had to realize is like I could continue to push carts and work full time for Walmart and have all these benefits and stuff. But the thing that was inside of me and has been inside of me since I was a young boy is like there's more. Like there's more. There's different levels in life, and you know, however you want to look at things. Like I believe in the God of the Bible, so I believe that God has given me great responsibility, great gifts. He's opened up great doors, and all, like, so much has been given to me. And for me to push carts for the next 20 years of my life, or, you know, I delivered pizzas in college and after college and working kind of those jobs, like I would be in my perspective wasting my life and wasting what God has given me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like you've been given so much. So in your searching and your serving and all that, like I just want you to know that there's a lot more for you to give to positively impact the world and change the world because of your past life, because of where you're at right now, and where you're going to go. You see what I'm saying? Like, and to always hold on, though, that's very important. Humility is so valuable in life. Like one of the Bible verse that is continually popping up in my mind is like, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And however you look at all that, like life, if we get arrogant and full of ourselves and all of that, prideful, like life, God will humble us.
Yeah.
You know.
Uh-huh.
So always having that heart of service and realizing like I'm not above cleaning toilets, I'm not above pushing carts, you know, but not staying in that place. Keeping that heart of service, but just saying, hey, like there's more, and because I know I've been given so much to give.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's just where I want, like, our conversation and your time with me is like just continue to pursue who Dani is, and then once you kind of get that awakening or that realization or that speaking, however you seek that, like then just take it and run with it, because you have been given people's lives, like through social media, through your competing, like people, like I've been following you for like 3 or 4 years, not like every day, but it's like I've been following you, you know what I mean? And like I'm an individual, so even though you don't like the social media and there's different things, sometimes it's like I'm going to do this because I know it's going to positively impact somebody's life, you know. And definitely. that's where, and that comes where that heart of service, like, hey, I might not enjoy this, but I'm going to do it because I know it's going to impact somebody else, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I had to take a step back from social media, because I'm like, I have so many people looking at me, and what I want to say, I want to come across impactful and influential in the best light possible. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to keep posting because I didn't want to be who I was. So until I could come back as this different person and look at social media totally differently and not be attached to sponsors and these companies and just be myself. And now I'm starting to look at YouTube and social media as a platform. And how can I use this for good? And like that very well may be my way to serve the world. And so
one of your ways. One of your ways.
One of my ways. Yeah.
Because you have so much to give. And like the social, like Instagram, like that, social media is not going anywhere. Like that's the world we live in. And you can use it for dark, or you can use it, like we've talked about, for light. It can be used for love, or it can be used for dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's just like what I'm trying to share with you is like you have so much to give. You know what I mean? That. So don't resist that, and don't try to put yourself in like, well, I'm cleaning these toilets. Yeah, this is a season. You're learning. I understand all that, but just remember, like, there's more.
Yeah.
And you have so much again to give. We've been given so much to give away, to positively impact the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's what I think. Like, those who know must show is like kind of what keeps going over and over in my head. And then when you ask like who I am, the only like I try to what I think about now when you say who are you, I think about I am the I am statements, right?
Yeah.
So like I am open, I am grateful, I am humbled, I am joyful. So I think of all these I am words like that, and I like that so much more than I am a yogi, I am a bodybuilder, I am a personal trainer, because personal training is great, but that's not all of me.
Absolutely.
So when you say who are you, I say I'm open to new things, I'm grateful for where I am and where I'm going, where I all of that, and I'm love. I literally just want to love and be compassionate towards everything. Even like I stopped drinking because I was just there's just not good things, but it's also violent to yourself. And so I want to cultivate a life of compassion and openness, open to different religions, different viewpoints. I'm open literally to everything.
Right.
I am non-judgmental. I don't want to judge anybody. And so I am all of those things. And I am a giver. I love to give. So those are all of the things that I am.
Yeah.
And now how do I want that to be the hardest thing that's been for me is what is my voice without bodybuilding? Because it was very easy for me to speak from a spiritual point when I was so good at bodybuilding, because I was in that all the time. And the hardest thing for me to do that I'm cultivating now is this spiritual positive voice without the stage and without these big lean muscles.
Right.
So I love that question, because that's who I am is that's where I want to speak from on social media.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want to present and portray. That's what I want to show is openness and gratitude and happiness and joyfulness and like the littlest things, like catching a cool time like 3:33 or 11:11 or looking at a mountain being like whoa, or at a flower, at a bug. Like I went up to this tree and there I found one ladybug on it, and then I go to take pictures of it. Turn out it's like a tree of like hundreds of ladybugs like all over this tree, and I was just freaking out. It's like little things like that, like going up to stop and smell the roses, and when you do go smell the roses, there might be a whole freaking bush behind waiting for you. So I just want to be like, just be awesome every day. And be present and be conscious and be aware. And I want to share that with the world. I think is like awareness of everything, and then finding meaning in everything, and value in every little thing, because there is so much value.
Amen.
Yeah.
Every experience in life is an opportunity to learn.
Yes.
That's my mindset. When you're on Interstate 25 trying to make it to a podcast interview at 1:30 and you're going 0 miles per hour, it's like, you know what? This is an experience. And I can learn in this experience, and I can, just go with the flow.
Yeah.
So there's dark and there's light in the world, and whether we're in the light in this moment or we're in the dark in this moment, if we have the right mindset, those experiences, every experience, light, dark, it's an opportunity to learn. Yeah. Learn first of all about yourself. And then if there are people around you, it's an opportunity for you and for us, for myself, to learn about others. And it's just, that's just next level stuff, Because it's like, it's so easy, just like you're talking about your competing days. It's just so easy, whether competing, just life in general, and the culture we live in, it's fast, me, I want it right now. It's just, you just get in this cycle of just go. And it's like, dude, like we have to learn as human beings. There's so much power in taking a step out of that fastness of life and like okay, who am I?
Yes.
Where am I actually going? Why am I here? Like, dude, what is this all about? Because like you were just talking about, like when you were talking about your competing days, like there's such a you were in such like this, you had such this tunnel vision, and you have, anytime you're going to be the best or trying to reach that next level of being the best in anything, like you have to have that. But then there's that time in life where you just have to like realize, like, this is going to end. Everything is going to end. Is the rest of my life going to be Dani the bodybuilder, or or not, or is there, you know what I mean? Like, that's where it's just like, we have to, like, for the listeners out there, like, please, you guys have heard me say this so many times, like, take a step back, get quiet with yourself, practice that stillness. You have to know who you are, why you're on this earth, and the direction that you need to be going, not the direction you have to be going. It's just so important and valuable. So, and I love the whole, I just love that word peace. Just saying the word peace, like, it's powerful.
Yeah.
It just, even like as I'm saying it, like, it brings kind of a calmness upon me. You know what I mean? Because we're so, like, I can just tell, like, you're intense, I'm intense. The world we live in is intense, right? Like, it's a you know, it's either you win or you lose. There's nothing really in between in life, but we can choose to take a step back and experience peace.
Yeah.
You know? So
peace is so nice too.
It's good.
It's and like that, and there have been a lot of not peace in my life going through the health insurance and moving here, but like there's also like you were saying, the intensity of like the competition, and then figuring out, like, after I took a step back from that, like, wait, what is this all for right now? Like, what am I doing? Putting my body through this, like, for a trophy? And I got second. And then I hit rock bottom. So, like, really, is first going to be that much better? You know, or is first going to be as great as first is the rock bottom even deeper? Right. So, yeah, and it was a really scary, you know, time. But I think if the goal is not so much a trophy or a placement or an award, but it's joy and peace and how we are in this world and how we affect others. And, like, if we are peaceful, sometimes the people around us, they catch your vibe.
Absolutely.
And then you vibrate that to them. And like, it would be so awesome to be a beacon of light and peace in this world that is so fast-paced. And people just should realize that if you cultivate a little bit of peace, you'll be so much better at your fast-pacedness because you can bring yourself there. And you can find peace in the fast-pacedness. And when you find that, then you're flowing. You're in the peace and the fast-pacedness. That is flow, man. Because then you're making good decisions, you're acting right, you're, you know, clear. And I think that's what so many people miss. And I think that's why meditation and yoga and all these new age things are becoming so like cultivated now. Because it's so necessary for us to really be successful. Like, look at Tony Robbins. He has a whole thing about meditation and peace and the cold showers and that stuff that I think people just almost like neglect. They just see the money and the sexiness of entrepreneurship and these businesses and the millions, and then they forget about the other side of that. Right. And I think that's like super important. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's wrap things up here, Dani. Is there anything that you kind of just want to share with the listeners? I mean, obviously you've shared a lot. We've talked about a lot, covered a lot. Is there any kind of final words or anything that you want to leave with the 127 Fit Podcast listeners?
Well, I want to say thank you guys so much for listening. I really, really, really appreciate every single one of you. And if I could tell you anything today, like anything to remember, is to be grateful. Because whenever you're grateful, you really can't be anything else other than grateful, especially angry or sad or mad or resentful. And there's all these different emotions that we need to deal with. But when we're grateful for things, even the bad things become more so lessons than they do, you know, a hard time in your life. So I think gratefulness, joy, peace, happiness, all of that should be the goal. It should never be revenge or resentment or, you know, anger. And I know it's really hard in a day, you know, in our world today. But if I could say anything to you, even if you're in your fast-paced environment and you're climbing your way to the top, even if it is a stage, take the time for yourself and get quiet and get peaceful. And I'm not the greatest at it, but it's one of the biggest goals that I have right now because I know that's going to make me good in every other aspect of my life. So I think my thing to you is just be grateful.
Cool. So the final question that I have for you is, what sets your soul on fire?
That's a hard one. Well, I guess I would say peace.
Peace, yeah.
Peace it's so funny. It's like an oxymoron, right? It's like loud peace. But yeah, the peace, when I find peace, that's something that really makes my soul happy. Nature and peace and the divinity there. But something that excites my soul is alignment.
Alignment, okay.
Alignment is alignment, even if it's with the time and like the universe or whatever you want to call it, God speaks to me all the time. I mean, I find it in the time. I'll walk into a store and a song will be on that'll resonate. Somebody will walk by with a shirt on that will resonate, or like a bird, or like literally something that is on somebody's house key I will see, and that'll resonate with me. And so just awareness and meaning and alignment, I think they all kind of go together, because you can't have alignment if you don't know awareness and meaning. It's because you don't know what the alignment like means and all that. But so I think awareness and meaning and alignment,
cool.
It's something that, like even like looking at the books, like walking in here, all the different book titles and covers, I'm like, like I just notice things all the time.
Because you're open. It goes back to you're open.
Yeah.
You're open. You're willing to learn.
Yeah, and I'm willing to hear and listen and see these things. And then the hard part is listening, right? The hard part is like taking these lessons, like even though it may be a hard thing that you just saw that you just came in alignment with, it may be something that's hard to actually listen to and follow through with. So alignment. Cool. I love catching the time, like 11:11 and like 3:33 numbers. Like some people even talk to me and be like, "Oh yeah, I weighed 333 pounds," and I'm like, right. "I heard you." They don't even know what they just did to me.
Right. Cool. So Dani, I just personally want to thank you for taking almost 2 hours to kind of share your story. Yeah. We've been here longer. But thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you for just being kind of raw, real, transparent, vulnerable. That's super powerful stuff. So I really appreciate it, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. So, Dani, if somebody is resonating with your story, wants to follow you, reach out to you, learn more about you, things of that nature, where can somebody go to kind of just reach out to you and talk to you a little bit more?
Okay, so if you want to get me directly, Instagram things get lost, like through messages, and they go into a different inbox, and I don't know why it doesn't go into my regular one. But just email me, ifbbdani@gmail.com. So that's the easiest, most direct way. Like if you want to talk to me and really connect with me, because things get lost in my DM.
Right.
But if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @LittleMonstar, MONSTAR. Facebook is IFBB Pro Dani Reardon or something like that. I'm not super active on Facebook.
It's okay, yeah.
And then online training, if you guys want to be a client and you want to take part in online training, it's not super expensive, so don't get scared that I'm an IFBB Pro. It's way affordable. It's an knoxfitness.com or knoxfit. It's NOX stands for no excuses. And so that's a group of people that I'm working with. And I like the group of people for training because we all bring something different to the table. Some of us really like to put together workouts. Some of us really like the mindset. Some people really like nutrition. So I love the group of guys I'm working with because I think it makes a better program for the clients. So NOX Fit or Knox Fitness is where you can find us. It's purple and black and white. And if you're in Colorado, come see me at F45 Superior. That's the love of my life right now. F45 Superior. I also work at Fit Tech. That's great. A little more techy, a little bit more specific. You hook up to an EMS suit. I encourage, and connect with me on YouTube too. There's going to be a lot more of me speaking and doing vegan cooking and just trying to spread my light more, because Instagram is a picture, but YouTube I can really be myself.
Absolutely. And
be there and connect with you guys. So, YouTube is also Lil Monstar. I really look forward to connecting with you guys. Hopefully I can one-on-one. And I just want to say again, thank you all so much for listening and tagging along with us this whole time. I appreciate all of you.
Cool. Listeners, thank you so much. Just kind of echoing what Dani just said, thank you so much for hanging out with Dani and myself on the 127 Fit Podcast. I know that you were provided great value, a lot of wisdom and insight, and I know that there's a lot of takeaways from this conversation. So if you guys want to reach out to me or follow me, whatever I've got going on, you can find me on Instagram at 127fitness. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. And then if you guys are finding value, which I know you are, through the guests that I'm bringing on to the podcast, please leave a 5-star review in iTunes. That would be a great help with more people finding the podcast, listening, and getting the value that you're gaining from this podcast. And then if you think you'd be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance or somebody you think in the state of Colorado would be a great guest or guests for the 127 Fit podcast, please send me an email. The email is 127fit@gmail.com. And then if you guys would start just sharing the episode or episodes that you're listening to on your Facebook stories and Instagram stories, just to kind of get more eyes and ears on this podcast, that would be great. And please, as you share, use the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow. And then per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.